I was very lucky to get a scholarship at an A-level school in Nakuru, an A-level boarding school, because my town didn't have A-levels. So my town, like the school in my town, had until GCSEs. So moved cities into boarding school for my A-levels. And during my interview for that school, my headmaster was like, I think you can go to Cambridge. I was like, cool, what's that?
Hi everyone, this is the Oxford and Cambridge project. Today we have Areeg Emarah with us. Areeg is currently a fourth-year student at Trinity College in Cambridge, reading engineering. Areeg grew up in Kenya and matriculated at Cambridge in 2017 as a Beacon Scholar, and she will graduate later this year with a Master in Engineering in Information and Computer Engineering. During her time at university, Areeg has taken up numerous roles to support fellow students with, for example, the role of Overseas Welfare Officer in the Trinity JCR, of shadowing scheme mentor for Cambridge Students' Union, being the first ever Cambridge University Engineering Society Access Officer, and also being a founding member for the May Week Alternative. She's even received an Outstanding Contribution to Education award by the Cambridge University Engineering Department for all her work done. Areeg, it's amazing to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Areeg, I think you're joining us from your room in Cambridge right now. It is obviously the start of the third lockdown in the UK. How are you feeling?
It's all right. It's okay. I feel like everyone's a bit low. It's just like, oh well, we've gotten through two. Hopefully third time's lucky. Who knows? And then we'll be done with this. But yeah.
Yeah, let's hope so, and let's hope that it comes before like the end of, your Cambridge.
I just want to graduate with an actual graduation. That just sounds weird. Like I just want to be normal, but we'll see how it goes. Like obviously Cambridge is going to be very empty and everything, but like there's enough people around that you can still go on walks, so it's fine. Just like trying to stay sane, but it's a bit difficult, but here we are.
Definitely. It feels like for students, staying safe and staying sane is not in the same like ballpark, but hey,
Yeah.
I'm glad that at least you're in Cambridge and doing the best you can. But so, Areeg, I feel like it would be great to start the interview with talking a bit about your background, how you grew up and got to apply to Cambridge.
Well, okay, so my background's a bit messy. So my parents are Egyptian, but I've lived my whole life in Kenya, so I identify quite strongly with both countries. Wear Kenyan flag all the time on me, and I have like a Nefertiti chain for Egypt. Yeah, so I didn't know what Cambridge was before year 12. So basically I studied like my hometown is Eldoret, which is west of Kenya. Was quite a small town. It's grown a bit now, but I didn't have access to information about what Cambridge is, or I just didn't Google stuff really. And then I was very lucky to get a scholarship at an A-level school in Nakuru, an A-level boarding school, because my town didn't have A-levels. So my town, like the school in my town, had until GCSEs. So moved cities into boarding school for my A-levels. And during my interview for that school, my headmaster was like, I think you can go to Cambridge. I was like, cool, what's that? And yeah, since then that became the goal. Just like, okay, are we gonna do this? And yeah, first of all, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. It was just like, I like politics, but my parents were like, no. So it was just like, what do I not like about politicians? They talk a lot and usually do nothing. So I was like, okay, let's do engineering because I can do physics and maths. And then like hopefully later down the line go into international development or something where I can actually enact policies, but with a science background to inform that rather than, yeah, talking a lot and not basing it on much evidence. I should stop firing shots at politicians. But yeah, so that was kind of my background, and I was quite lucky. First of all, I couldn't have afforded Cambridge at all, but again, I was really lucky to find a scholarship here, the Beacon Scholarship, which is aimed at East African students, and we have a few partner unis in the UK. And I was their third ever uni scholar, so it was quite cool. I'm like their family to me now. So like I've had a lot of really lucky streaks. Like yes, I worked hard and so on, but there are people who've worked way harder than me from similar backgrounds, but haven't gotten the same opportunities. So yeah, I'd say I've been quite lucky with a lot of things, and things have fallen into place. And here I am. Like I applied to Trinity because it took the largest number of engineers, not knowing what Trinity was, because I didn't know about all the like the different reputations of different colleges and so on. But yeah, no regrets. I'm quite happy with it so far. I'm like, yeah, don't want to finish, but also want to graduate. So yeah.
Definitely. I think it's so nice hearing you just talk about your journey, because it's like you kind of, obviously you put in this amazing work, and like all the work that you've done since you got to uni just proves that, with not only your studies but like all the other societies that you're a part of. But also, not enough people recognize that luck is like a streak you need to have to kind of
Yeah.
get um, in a place that you can use all the opportunities that come to you. And I definitely want to talk more about the Beacon Scholarship and what that's allowed you to do. And obviously Trinity. And if any listeners don't know what Trinity is yet, we've actually done another episode on Trinity that they can go check out. But obviously we'll be talking about how Trinity is one of the richest and oldest colleges in Cambridge, very grandiose in its architecture. So definitely one to keep up with. Let's talk about your application then. When you were still in school, you got this opportunity to study A levels, and then some, headmasters thought that you could do it, and you didn't know what Cambridge was. So how did you go about just doing the whole application process, and then obviously interview after?
So, in terms of the application process, again, I didn't know. It's just a thing, I didn't Google stuff. So, like, our school did UCAS, but they started after the Cambridge deadline. So, I ended up doing an independent UCAS application. And, like, I was really lucky. Basically, the headmaster who told me you can make it to Cambridge left, which was very sad. But I was helped by like three key people, I think. Someone from my school who had just started at Cambridge, and she was the first ever Beacon Scholar. And then my physics teacher who left in year 12 but supported me throughout. And my PE teacher who had done UCAS, like he had studied in the UK, so he knew the process. So, oh, again, I decided on engineering in September. So I started the whole application process in September. Um, and I would sit like an hour every day with my PE teacher, being like, okay, what are we going to put in this? And just like draft upon draft, and just like not really knowing what is happening or what I'm doing, but like going ahead with it. And like yeah, and then my friend who was here, she helped me a lot by looking through things, and my physics teacher advised me on like things to read and stuff. Because again, I didn't really have opportunities to do much extracurricular stuff in terms of engineering. And also I didn't know I wanted to do engineering. So like my only work experience was shadowing doctors in a hospital. So I twisted that around. I was like, I saw all these MRI machines and used that in my personal statement. But yeah, it was a very weird time because also, in addition to doing UCAS, I applied to the US and Canada. So I applied to three unis in the US and two unis in Canada. And just juggling all of that was quite a lot, in addition to year 13. And like, I was head girl at the time in school. So it was just like, I love keeping myself busy to an unhealthy state, but it's fine.
I can see that definitely, and it's quite funny. Did you apply for engineering to all those universities?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how? I love how like most people say in their episodes coming on this podcast that the one thing that you need to prove to like the interviewers when you're interviewing for Cambridge or even in your personal statement is like how much you love the subject and how you're so passionate with it. How did you do that, given that you weren't even, really sure you wanted to do engineering, but it seemed like the most practical choice?
I think for me, I wasn't crazy about like the science itself, but I was crazy about what I can do with the science. And hence, like in my personal statement and in my interview, well, my interviewer was mostly technical and I could do the question. Well, couldn't really do the. I attempted to do the questions, we got through them. But like in my personal statement, I think my thing was about impact and the amount of impact engineering can have on the world. And I focused on the impact of engineering on the medical sector and just how much it's helped improve the world. And yeah, I think for me, it was less obsessed with the science, but with what cool stuff the science can lead to. And I think that was my thing. And like I was passionate about the impact and hence it showed. And yeah, I think in general, I'm just good at getting excited about things really easily. So it showed in my personal statement. But yeah, I think that was, I'm like, I wrote about, so in preparation for my personal statement, I wrote one article in the New Scientist on the simplex algorithm in maths and wrote about that. I was like, oh, I found this really cool. And like, oh, there's physics in the javelin. I don't I don't know what I was like. I look back at my personal statement and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so cringe. But here we are. But I'm not very sure what they saw in me because imposter syndrome is real. Still is real 4 years down the line. I'm like, come on, we're almost done. How we, but yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, I think it was my passion for the impact rather than the subject itself.
That's amazing. And I like you can really see the impact it's having, like especially since we talked about like the impact on the medical sector. Literally, we're in the times of COVID and we need ways to, transport all these vaccines to people. So like it is just crazy how you I don't want to say predicted, but like you really hit home with a
Yeah.
super current topic in your personal statement 4 years ago. So was it a quite natural way to interview? I guess like it was the first time that you were Cambridge to come and interview. How did that whole experience go down?
Oh, so the first thing I noticed was how cold it was. Because like December, like Kenya, we're on the equator. We don't really have seasons. It's always warm and nice. It's either raining or not. That's kind of our seasons. So I came here and like all I had ever done was read about seasons in books. I didn't know seasons were real. So I came and it was really cold. Like I didn't understand the idea of wearing a scarf around your neck until the air touched my neck and I was like, oh my God, okay, this is cold. Um, but yeah, in terms of how I felt about the interview, I think because I didn't know what a big deal Cambridge was, I wasn't as stressed as people usually are for their Cambridge interview. It's like I didn't know how big of a deal this is, that I didn't have that bias of, oh, I'm not good enough. It was just like, oh, I'm just applying to uni. And like my interviews were really nice. And like my interview was divided into three parts. The first part was an hour exam where you had like 10 questions. I ended up not answering any of them fully, but I attempted 9 of them. And oh, then my first proper interview was with one of my supervisors, and that was trying to go through my solutions. And like through that, we answered like 5 out of 10 questions. And I remember making like really stupid like I couldn't integrate x squared, which is like basic mathematics. Well, if you're applying for an engineering degree. And yeah, then my third interview was more of like, okay, here's us rolling a few things or doing this random thing. Let's discuss it and see how math and physics goes into this. And I found that really fun. And like, yeah, it was scary, but I was like, oh well, moving on swiftly. But yeah, it was my first time coming to the UK and that was weird, but like I left quickly. But I think it was a good experience. And like it was fun. And in my head, I was like, worst case scenario, like I have done it. it's not every day you get to speak to someone who's one of the best at what they do in the world and like enjoy it. So hey ho. And I remember getting one of the Cambridge University jackets being like, I'm probably never coming back. So let's have a souvenir to cry about. But yeah.
I just love your attitude. Like just very happy about things. And I think I'm quite similar, so I just love it. But like having, yeah, I guess for you, you were lucky in the fact that you didn't know about it yet, so you
Yeah.
didn't have stress or any imposter syndrome already. But yeah, I guess like attempting to do a lot of questions and showing like your
Yeah.
findings and everything, even though you don't finish it, they're actually like, you know, a lot of people say they're too hard for you to finish it anyway.
Oh yeah.
Trying to
I
see,
don't think it's humanly possible to finish.
yeah, exactly. You weren't even sure that you wanted to study engineering, or it wasn't like your dream since you were a little girl, but showing that you're enthusiastic, you're liking this like brain challenge
Yeah.
during the interview must have definitely played in your favor.
Yeah.
And what about like Trinity and the college when you arrived?
Well, when I came here, I was like, whoa, this is big. Like Great Court. Fun fact, Great Court is the largest closed court in the whole of Europe. Um,
Wow.
yeah, fact check me, please. But yeah, I think it's
I will
true.
do.
Um, but yeah, when I entered that, it was like, whoa, this is like bizarre. Well, no, but it just this is very new. I was like, how am I gonna like again, I didn't know how big of a deal it is. So I thought this is the norm. I was like, okay, is this what is usual in the UK? That's the issue because my view of the UK at the point was Cambridge, and now I'm very much learning the UK is not Cambridge. But like, I think when I first, so that was my interview, just like, whoa, this is huge. And then when I got my offer, I remember I was sitting in the sixth form center with a few friends and they took a video of me as I was opening the email. Great times. This could have been really bad if it was a rejection. It's nice because now I have like a video of me opening my acceptance. But again, it was like it was the news in school because like everyone knew Areeg was applying to Cambridge. Everyone knew when Areeg went for interview. Everyone knew when Areeg got accepted. And like I remember like going into hall and like teachers hugging me and feeling like, oh my gosh, we did it. I'm like, yes, we did. And so yeah, I think it very much felt like a dream come true, even though it was a dream for a very short while. Like I was clueless about it just to well 2 years back, and here I was. And yeah, with coming here, I think initially it was very scary. Like first of all, I had this utopian view of what the UK would be, and then I realized it's not. Like it's just like I don't know, the view of the West was like very advanced, lots of equality and equity, etc. And then you come and like the real world is it's the real world, nothing's perfect, and so on. And just like realizing there's a lot of like socioeconomic injustice, racial injustice, and so on. So yeah, when I first came here, there was that of like, whoa, this is actually a real place and it's not a utopia. And also being, I remember being very apprehensive about like being Muslim and just being different. And like, I never identified as a person of color until I came here. Cause like, at least like back home in Kenya, I am different in that I'm not native Kenyan, but just race didn't feel as big of a thing back home as it does here. And I think the whole like Michaelmas of first ever first year was very much like, what am I doing? What is this? And just like people are lovely and everything, but you're just scared and it's not the most rational thing. But here we are now. This feels like home. Cambridge definitely feels like home, and more the UK feels like home. So it's a weird thing. It's like, yes, there is flaws, but there's flaws with everything. And I love this now. So in terms of Trinity, I think there was like International Freshers Week, which was really nice because I got to meet other internationals and like bond about not being from the UK. And then Freshers Week came, and that was scary because I don't drink, and all events had like the option not to drink, but also it was still scary. So I'm very social, but I ended up mostly in my room for Freshers Week. And also engineering started so early. Like I had so much work to do from the beginning. There really wasn't much time for freshers anyway.
I was also similar actually. I didn't really know what seasons were. I had always lived in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia for most of my life. So I was just like, I don't know what winter is. I don't have a coat. And yeah, it was just also very like dark, gloomy. And the fact that everything was dark really early made me like shut down completely. I'd also just stayed in my room for lots of times. I couldn't really understand different like English accents, and
Yes.
I just
Oh
didn't
my God.
understand people, so I was just really scared to interact, even though I, love talking to people. You were saying that you hadn't really thought of yourself ever as a person of color until Cambridge. Like, did you feel like you needed to voice yourself more as one then, or that you didn't really want to like stand out, or how did that go?
Uh, I think for me it was like it's not like I wanted to be like, yeah, I'm a person of color, but like I wear the hijab, I'm not white. It comes, I think one of the things I struggled with in the UK is just the number of labels there are, and people just put a lot of labels into you, and it's like you just got to carry them around. But I think I'm more of the person who just embraces it. I'm like, yeah, I am moving on. So it's just like, I think for me, initially it was like, okay, we're gonna do a low profile to avoid getting in trouble for any reason, which looking back was not necessary. But it's just like I was a bit scared to begin with. But yeah, I don't think that was much of an issue. I, like I saw differences between people and so on, but that was also a common thing for people who are international wherever they're from, just because it's a different culture. It's normal. Culture clash is normal, expected. So it was like, and also I learned to like appreciate the differences everyone has, and like just learning a lot of random stuff like why do I know that red wine goes better with meat even though I don't drink? It's just like just learning those little things. You're like, whoa. So yeah, I actually enjoyed the being different part. I don't think I've ever felt it's well, apart from being people being shocked that I can speak English. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have made it to Cambridge if I didn't. But like, yeah, I think I remember in Freshers Week being asked by someone in college, like, where are you from? The classic. I'm like, yeah, I'm from Kenya. They're like, oh, but you speak English so well. I'm like, yeah, you colonized us. Sorry. But it's like,
The best answer to this. Yep.
yeah, so it's just like, okay, cool. But other than that, like, it's been pretty lit. And yeah, people, I like students at Cambridge because like, well, Cambridge is very left, I think, and just like that involves like welcoming everyone and so on. So it's been quite cool.
I mean, it's at uni that like people learn who they are themselves, right? And a lot of people who won't have seen diversity before going to university will, hopefully unlearn some like things that they've just assimilated from growing up, and are just more and more open. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Woo!
And obviously Trinity is one of the biggest colleges like per intake of students, and so that means that like you have more like
Oh yeah, like
communities forming.
in my year we were over 200 students undergrad admitted, and like almost 50%, well 40% of us were international. So it was actually very diverse in terms of meeting new people and new cultures, which was quite nice. But yeah, it was like Trinity immediately felt like home, which is weird. And it's like now, because this year I'm living in St. Edmund's College, just because Trinity didn't have enough accommodation because of the U-turn and increased numbers of freshers. So now I realize how much Trinity used to feel like home, whereas now, like when I go into Great Court, I'm like, wow. Whereas before it had become the norm, which was really interesting. But yeah, so my experience with Trinity has been great because like the staff are really lovely, which like Trinity has a reputation of the porters being really strict or whatever, but my experience has been the exact opposite. Like people are really lovely, and the staff care, which I think again a lot of people don't realize that staff care until they actually interact with staff, or like whether it's admin staff or like maintenance staff and so on. So it's just like, yeah, it's it's very weird because you definitely get the sense of community when you live in a college, because like we're all types of people, students, staff and so on, and it's like getting along together and making this thing work. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like for Trinity, anyone saying like spreading those, rumors that like it's really strict and because it's too big, like people won't necessarily care. It's probably more students who aren't from Trinity but are from like the other Cambridge colleges.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that like, that vibe from when you live there when you're inside.
Yeah.
But obviously it's good to know that it's not like that when you're inside, and that it's just as warm as other colleges like Medwards or anything. And just think it's great that the fact that you're assimilated the great court and like going to formal just as like your home and
Oh yes.
when you come back you're just like, oh, actually this is amazing, this is like wow.
This is so cool. I love it when like when it was legal, when I would like take guests in and show them around and they're like, whoa, I'm like, yeah, that's my crib. But yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk a bit about engineering and just, I guess, what you start doing in first year, how the rhythm of like lectures and supervision goes. And I know that you're specializing in information and computer engineering. So I guess if you could talk about how you specialized in that field and like when do you do that?
So engineering. Disclaimer, I have found my degree very difficult. Like I came to Cambridge and realized I'm not academic, but it was too late. Or at least not academic by Cambridge standards. So in first year, the best thing about like first years, you start the first project you do in the engineering department is 1 week of Lego Mindstorms. So you put in like groups of 3 and you're given some Lego and you're like, make a robot. Your girl had not seen like coding before. Your girl knew nothing about mechanics. So yeah, it was great. I I found that quite a shocker. It was like, whoa, okay, there's a lot that I don't know, and I'm not a natural at figuring things out, but that's okay. Moving on swiftly. And like, so in engineering at Cambridge is general for the first 2 years, which I think is really good because you do all types of engineering and quite a bit of depth. So it means like, thingamajig, you get a lot of insight into like mechanics, structures, materials, fluids and fluid dynamics, a lot of maths, information and computer engineering, software engineering, like, and electrical. Of course, I would forget that. But yeah, so you get a lot of in-depth knowledge. But the issue with that is it's both in-depth and breadth. So it's a lot of work. It's like, wait, I would say it's like doing like 6 parallel degrees, but I'm probably exaggerating because I'm a student. But yeah, it felt like a lot. And especially in first year, you're doing like very basic stuff and everything. Second year, you're doing pretty serious stuff in each and everything. And by second year, you really know what you don't like. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't like this, but I have to do more of it. But yeah, but got through that, and like I've always said, for the first 3 years of my degree I was basically doing my degree on the side. It was like do everything else and pass the degree, which passed the degree we did. But basically I sat down and I was like, what is it do I want from my Cambridge degree? Because
Yeah.
I don't think university is just about your academics, because it's also a time that you're growing up and you get to meet a lot of amazing people, you get to have a lot of amazing experiences. So it's just like, what do I want? And I felt that developing myself as a person and like intellectually and the way I speak, the things I care about, and just like trying to have an impact while I'm here is what I wanted to focus on. And so I did. I still did my degree, but it's just like, yeah, a lot of late nights and stressful times in the library, but it's fine. Like
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. Um, but yeah, so first year was mostly like, what's happening? Am I gonna fail? I genuinely had legit concerns about getting kicked out because I say I did my degree on the side. Most of my time was studying because it's Cambridge. But yeah, I just really struggled with my academics and I passed. I like, yeah, first year was okay. And then second year got a bit more tough. And especially closer to the end of second year, I struggled with my mental health of like, okay, this is a lot. And yeah, that impacted my second year grades quite a bit. But again, I passed, so it's fine. And came third year, in third and fourth year, you get to specialize. So that was quite nice because I specialized by elimination rather than by knowing what I like. So it was just like, okay, there's this and that. So I focused more like in third year, I did a bit of bio. I did a lot of business modules because I really enjoyed them and a lot of information engineering. And I was like, oh, this is actually quite cool. And like over my 3 summers, I've done internships in software engineering. And that's what I want to do. And that's actually something I really enjoy. But Cambridge doesn't really do much of software engineering. So it was just like, okay, what's the thing I like the most? Information engineering. And it's pretty cool. Very like a lot of machine learning and stuff, which is the in thing these days. And yeah, this year, like have 8 modules and a fourth year master's project. All's good. We're alive. And then COVID, of course. Oh gosh, COVID. Because COVID hit at the end of second term and third year. And that was an interesting thing for me because like colleges were like, yeah, we want to reduce the number of people in college, please leave if you can. And then that was, so college emailed us on Friday the 13th of March, and then for me Kenya closed its border on Saturday morning, so I just couldn't go home.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a family, like a friend of mine, her family offered to take me in. So I lived in their house for 6 months, which
Wow.
was very interesting. Like it was, yeah, that was an interesting experience. And just like starting the whole remote learning and getting through that was difficult. But here we are again. Like I actually did well in my third year. I was very proud of myself. I was like, woo, we did a thing. But yeah, it was the first time I felt like satisfied with my academic performance in Cambridge, which I think is rare.
Well, I'm glad first of all that third year you think that you were really happy with yourself, because
Yeah.
when we actually do get a chance to specialize, surely that becomes a bit easier and like,
Yeah.
you have to go through the first 2 years and just get through it, as you said, like just ride the wave and hope for the best. But yeah, I'm just curious, like why is the engineering course 4 years? Can it just be three if you want it to be three? And like, how does that go? What's your fourth year project?
So the engineering degree is 4 years because you graduate with a Master of Engineering, like MEng. So some people do graduate after their third year, but it's quite rare because it's just nice to just get the master's done with while you're at it. And in terms of the fourth year, the different thing about the fourth year is that you have, in addition to exam modules and coursework modules, you have your fourth year project, which is basically the equivalent of a dissertation. So it's something that you're meant to spend 50% of your time on, and like at the end of it you do like a 50-page dissertation on whatever you've done, and it's quite cool. And like currently I'm working on a rewriting or lab from a project in third year from MATLAB, which is one language, into Python. And then I'm focusing on trying to see the impact of like machine learning, like if we can compress images using machine learning better than JPEG compression. But yeah, that's a bit technical. But yeah, it's quite cool. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. For me, not knowing anything about engineering, I know about image compression.
Woo!
So, woo, that's definitely one way to go. And if we can make it better, yay, let's use that. um, but yeah, so that's really cool. And I guess like really good that it's a 4 year course anyway, because so many people do a fourth year in Cambridge after their like
Yeah.
bachelor's degree, just because they are not sure what they want to do next. It buys them another year of doing like all the extracurricular stuff they may have not done. So I think fourth year is great, to be honest. Like I wish I could have planned myself more and like applied to masters like at the start of third year. But I was worried about jobs.
Oh God.
Are you thinking about that, like what you're going to do after that's graduation or virtual graduation? What is going to
Yes.
be done after Cambridge?
I think I want to stay in the UK for a bit and hopefully work as a software engineer somewhere. I think it'll be quite cool. And just like, yeah, again, I don't necessarily know what I want to do with my life in the long term, but who does? Hey ho. So for now, software engineering.
Nice. Within Cambridge, how different is life pre-COVID and like during COVID?
I
How has
think
your
pre
daily routine changed?
oh gosh. So I think Jake, like I guess I'll just talk about Michaelmas of my last year because we were actually in Cambridge. And for that, I used to live in the engineering department. Like I would go to the department at 9 p.m. 9 a.m. and not leave until like 6, 7 p.m. I lived there. I had my beanbag to sleep in the library. It was great. Power naps all the way forward. And just like there was a whole culture of like because the engineering department has this really nice thing where there's the silent section in the library and the work group section, which was my favorite. Like my biggest goal my biggest achievement in third year was moving to the silent section of the library. I was like, so yeah, in COVID, that was suddenly gone. Like the constant interaction with people, like I really miss spontaneous interaction because now you have to like arrange when to call someone, put it in the calendar, and it just feels so forced and unnatural. And it's like, what if I don't want to interact with humans at that time I've scheduled? It's like, but yeah, and but like with friends, we've started doing like online virtual work sessions where you're in like a voice channel with someone and they're doing their thing, you're doing your thing, but you can hear the background noise from them. So it feels like you're with some, which sounds so lonely, but it is what it is. It's a bit lonely. But I think the engineering department has done a good job of like coping with COVID. Like our lectures are now mostly pre-recorded or available after with recordings, and we now have like Q&A sessions to ask questions about the pre-recorded lectures. So I think a lot of people have actually gotten more out of the COVID teaching because you watch the lecture in your own time, then you get a Q&A, whereas before it was go attend a lecture and maybe ask the lecturer something at the end of the lecture, but not so much. So it's quite interesting. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned for like engineering and all other departments.
Definitely. And what did you have, like, did you still have supervisions when like Cambridge deemed it safe to do so? And like, can you now say go to the lab and do you have to like book a slot or anything? How does that go?
Well, the thing is, in fourth year, I don't have supos and I don't have labs because my stuff is all on the computer. So I've not really experienced that, but I know people had to book slots to go for labs. And supos did go on, but it was up to the supervisor whether like it was in person or like online, like depending on everyone's comfort. But now, like given proper lockdown, no one's allowed to do anything, which is sad, but yeah.
Yeah, but at least you're left with, yeah, I guess like the part of the course where you can do everything on your computer.
Yeah.
So that's good for
I'm
you.
quite lucky to be honest, but again, it's sad. Like I've not been to the department since March, and it feels so weird. That used to be my home, and now it isn't. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I guess so for you, you have no exams this year, or it's mostly from your coursework?
Well, I have 8 modules. 3 of them are going to be coursework and 5 exams in addition to my 4th year. Yeah, there's a lot of workload. It's a bit much, but yeah. So I am still going to have exams, which is going to be interesting. I actually have my coursework deadlines in a few days. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah, good luck. So on exams, it's a sort of time slot of 24 hours where they release the exam and then you have to do the paper.
Well, I think different departments did them differently. So for us last summer, it was at least again, within engineering, it was different for each year group. For third years, it was download the paper and you have an hour and a half to upload it from the time you've downloaded it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it's all a bit in the air right now, which is causing everyone to be a bit anxious of just like, what is actually going to happen this year? Because, like, as far as I know, the uni wants it to be able to be graded, and for that, online exams are not the greatest. Like, you need some form of proctoring. So I'm not really sure how it's going to happen, but yeah, that's one of the things which is like, I have no clue how this is going to happen. We shall see, but yeah.
It seems just like from your intro and like your life and your journey that you have gained so much from mentoring and from like people helping you to get to where you are now, but you've also literally just given back all that you gained. Just like reading all the about all the roles that you did, and the main one that was in all of your roles was like access, the theme of access. So I guess, could you talk to us about that, about like a role that you, I guess, really enjoyed? It's not fair to just pick one, but yeah, tell us about all of that.
I think personally, I'm just like very passionate about access to Cambridge because I think outside of the UK, the Cambridge, like outside the UK and Europe, the Cambridge brand is really not that big of a thing. And it's like, I think Cambridge is a great place. More people should know about it. So I'm very passionate about international access to like, especially African students. Like, I'm really a bit into stats. So, like, looking into stats, like in my year, I was the only person from the whole country of Kenya to be admitted to Cambridge, which is quite sad. And like, just looking at the stats, just access to Africa in general is very low. And that's due to a combination of factors of people not knowing it, it being really expensive, and there not being enough scholarships and stuff. So that's one thing I've been trying to work on, like on the side in my own time. But in terms of like formal things I've done, access within the UK is also quite bad. Like access to students from BME backgrounds or like or state schools and so on. So I've tried to work a lot on that. So I think my first experience was the CUSU shadowing scheme where like you get a shadow and they go around with you to lectures and labs and stuff for 3 days. And like I've done that for every year now. And yeah, and actually, anecdote, I met so at the beginning of third year, a fresher came up to me and he was like, "Hey, do you remember me?" I was like, "You look familiar, but I don't." He was like, "I was your shadow when you were in first year." I was like, that was like, that was one of the best things. But yeah, I think that was very rewarding. And it was like, okay, the things students are doing are actually working, which is quite great. And just like in terms of diversity and stuff, like 2 years in a row recording the highest number of Black students admitted and stuff like that. Like there's still a lot to be done, but there is something being done, which is quite cool. And yeah, I think for me, the thing I'm most passionate, like the QS, the Cambridge University Engineering Society officer, like the access officer for that. I remember applying for their diversity role, and I just kept talking about access so much that they're like, okay, we're gonna make an access officer role. I was like, ka-ching! We organized an access day. It was as I think it was the last in-person access day in Cambridge before COVID, because it was on the 12th of March,
Wow.
Thursday, the 12th of March, 2020. We had just under 50 students coming over, and we had a day with like lectures and sample activities. And like it was the start of COVID. So it was like, okay, let's try and be careful, like let's sanitize things. It was a bit of a scary time. But like we then walked from the engineering department to Trinity, had lunch, and it's just like, to me, access is really about letting people know that Cambridge can be theirs too. Because there's a lot of stereotypes about the type of Cambridge student. And it's like, no, no, that's not the case. It's for everyone. If you work hard and like, there is a factor of luck, but if you apply and you deserve to be here, you will be here. But of course, you deserving to be here is very dependent on where you're from because the amount of support you get and so on. So but it's just like giving kids the hope, like there are people like you here and you can make it here. And it's not bad being here. It's great. Like I say, sometimes when I'm struggling, I'm like, why on earth do I tell kids to come here? But it's like, I think it's worth it. It's great. Like you suffer, but it's worth it. So it's just like, yeah, I think access is just something I'm really passionate about. Like we need more people to know that this is an option and you can come here. And also the amount of support you get within Cambridge, whether it is from the tutorial system, like whether it's mental health support or financial support if you need it. And like a lot of people don't know about the Cambridge bursary. Like if your household income is below a certain threshold, you get £3,500 as a bursary. You don't need to pay it back. So it's just like there's a lot of things, and Cambridge itself is working a lot towards access, but it's just like one push at a time. We can do this. And I think it feels more legit when it's students reaching out because like they can relate more to someone who's older than them by 3 years rather than someone who's way older. Like it's just how the world works. It's easier to do that. But like also I had huge support from the outreach officer within the department. She's amazing. Like her job in the department is to increase outreach to engineering, and Maria Kettle, she's amazing. But yeah, so it's just like there's a lot of efforts from everyone, and it's getting better.
That's great. And obviously, like you talking about your Beacon Scholarship and your project to also increase access at the whole university level. And yeah, like I feel like you downplayed it a bit because like you were just in talks with the director of admissions at Cambridge University and like, you know, trying to poke them to like do more things about it and increase access. So that's amazing. And like, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. And I also wanted to talk about the May Week alternative.
That's what I wanted to talk about next.
Could you, I guess, explain to our listeners what it is and what you've been doing with it?
Yeah, so like basically May Week alternative was introduced. So one of my friends in first year, like when you're a fresher, you don't really know what May Week is. For those who don't know, May Week is a time in June, because Cambridge's weird, where it's the end of exams, it's summer, it's amazing. Everyone's really excited because they've finished their exams. So it's like Cambridge minus the work stress plus beautiful weather equals happiness and friends. So it's just like, woo! And yeah, May Week was coming. Like it was just starting for May Week things to come out. And well, actually, I didn't know him. I saw on Facebook that a friend of mine shared a friend's post about like doing a little thing together and donating to charity for May Week. And I was like, oh, this sounds cool. So I sent him a message. I was like, I think this is cool. And yeah, May Week Alternative started from there. It was just like, hey, how about we take this really positive thing where everyone's excited May Week and add a bit more to it, like add the concept of giving to charity. Because in general, people have a lot of negative connotations as to what charity is. Like, and it's just like there's all like poverty porn and just like guilt tripping people into donating or making people do good without really realizing it, of just like when you're logging out from something, tick a box to donate £1 to this charity, and it's like, okay, but that's not making people think about the impact of what they're doing. It's not making people engage with the problems of the world. So at May Week Alternative, we encourage people to give a donation that's significant to them, to the Against Malaria Foundation. So we propose £150, which is the average price of a Mayball ticket. So that's where like the significance of it. But we say an amount significant to you because, hey, what amount are you going to stop and think before donating? And then all of the donations are match funded. We recommend the Against Malaria Foundation because they were voted by GiveWell as one of the most effective charities, but like people can choose where to donate to, but the matched funding would go to AMF. And like in May Week, we hold a summer party. Well, we didn't last year, but I'll actually talk about the COVID response. But we hold a summer party to celebrate May Week and also to celebrate the collective impact we've had. And like last year, we raised over £100,000 for the Against Malaria Foundation, which is like, bro, it's a lot. Like, and it's been really cool seeing how the community has grown from my first year. So Like I was part of the founding committee, and I was on the committee for the 3 years, and then let it go for fourth year because handing over and sustainability and so on, and you can't stick to your baby. But like, yeah, it's been great. And like, what was really interesting was for COVID, when the whole thing happened and May Week was cancelled, there was the May Week mega event, which was organized by like May Week Alternative, the Mayball President's Committee, and RAG. And it was just like a long stream of a lot of events while raising money for COVID charities and stuff. So it was again really cool seeing how we adapted quickly to a change of circumstance. But yeah, May Week Alternative has been one of the most defining things in my time in Cambridge, of just like changing how I view charity and like how I interact with people and meeting similar minded people, but also like the whole, I found the whole making charity and doing good with positive connotation quite like charity and doing good and having an impact is a reason to celebrate. I think that's pretty cool, and that's what we stand for. I say we, I'm not on the committee anymore, but yeah,
It can definitely still be your baby, even though you've let go. Like, I
it'll
think
always
actually
be my baby.
the best is like organizations are the ones that you know, don't like die after some of the founding people are gone, right? So it's great that it's going on. It means that you've left a great, you know, legacy for the Cambridge students. I'm sure that obviously you'll have another virtual event this year, so they can all log on to that and go donate.
Ooh.
And so I don't want to keep you on for too long, but just, I guess, to wrap this up, I wanted to ask you any memories that you have, or like regrets that you might have had of your years, and how those memories could like help future students. So do you kind of have a specific memory for your happiest day in Cambridge, or one big regret that you'd like to share with everyone?
Yeah, I think happy memories, I think it was like at the end of first year exams. It's a Trinity engineering tradition that older years take us on punts to Grantchester and give us a barbecue, and then we all jumped into the river, and that was just such a good day. Don't jump into the river closer to Central because you might get poisoned. Don't do it. But it was Grantchester, the river was cleaner. I think that was one of the happiest days in my Cambridge time. It was like, oh my God, this is bliss. And just like the joy of finishing, or like I think it's the finishing of exams every year. It's like, oh my gosh, this is great. um Regrets, hmm, not really.
It could be not a regret, but it could be just, I guess, one like, yeah, big thing to know about before starting first year or anything like that.
Imposter syndrome is real. Believe in yourself. Like, I think I still struggle with it, of like, why did they let me in? I really don't deserve to be here. Or like just being really horrible to yourself when you don't do enough work, or like, and another thing is like thinking that comparing yourself to others is useful. It isn't. Like, everyone's on their Cambridge journey doing their thing. Just do your thing and it's going to be fine. And like, sometimes it felt like the world was ending and that was it. Like, yeah, I think just like you're going to make it through. And also remember to reach out to people, because like one thing I've found is people are so beautiful and like very willing to help if you ask. But most people are too scared to ask, whether it's staff or students. Like, just reach out. Most people want to help, they just don't know how. So it's just like speak out. And like, yeah, I think that's the main thing. Just like, there's always, what's the Dumbledore quote? There's always help in Hogwarts for those who ask. I have messed this up, but yeah.
I'll fact check this. I'll get the quote up so that everyone can
Thank
see.
you.
Hopefully, the moment where he says it as well, that would be even better.
Help will always be given at Hogwarts, Harry, to those who ask for it.
But yeah, and I think that last thing is just helpful for any questions that you have that might be trivial, questions that are like very personal or even
Yes.
like professional. Like, you can always have help of like people in your college that have
Yes.
done this before you, you know, getting lectures or notes or like career advice or anything from anyone in the year above, like they will be so happy to help. It's
Exactly.
like, just think about it as if you're receiving a, you know, Facebook message with a question like that. Like, of course you'd be like, yeah or
Yeah.
no. It's not, it doesn't matter. It's like a small thing, but it's huge for you. So just do it.
Just do it.
Areeg, it's been so amazing talking to you. I hope that all our listeners can see what I see, which is that you just not understanding why you have this imposter syndrome, because you've clearly been like an achiever, an overachiever, even not in the negative sense, in the good sense. And yeah, hopefully anyone who's watching this who thinks that Cambridge is not for them can see you and see that you've made it, and so they can make it. So thank you for such an inspirational episode, Areeg. Wish you all the best.
I've honestly enjoyed this. Thank you so much.